So I have a bunch of bullet points that I'm going to be going over, but The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Switch 2 remake is much bigger and more in-depth than people expected. A lot of people that talked about this game beforehand that came to my stream, that I saw online, content creators, many of them were saying that The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remake was going to be a 3DS port, or it's just going to be an enhanced 3DS version of the game. We're taking the 64 version and enhancing the textures like a HD version or something weird like that. A lot of people felt that it was not going to be what it was, that Nintendo wasn't going to take one of the all-time greatest games and just kind of remake it and potentially ruin the magic that so many people grew up with as kids and teenagers, young adults, and everything that they've done so far to build up the mystique and the prestige of Ocarina of Time, and throw that all away making in-depth graphics or something like that. But you know what? That's exactly what happened, and I'm going to break down why this is not just a straight up one-to-one remake with better graphics. This is, I think, even more expansive and different than what Star Fox is on the Nintendo Switch 2, which that is pretty much the bones of Star Fox 64, the game that we all know and love, with a fresh coat of paint, and a lot of the stuff is similar. Now, they did change up the dialogue, they do have some of the new cutscenes, they do have the multiplayer gameplay that's expanded, but for the most part, that is a true one-to-one remake with expanded content on top of that. So it was pretty easy to show off the gameplay and let you know what it was going to look like and all of that. Now, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Switch 2 remake, it's coming out this year. So since it's coming out this year and they didn't show more of the game, you already know what that means. That means that they are going to be prepping a Legend of Zelda blowout later, and we'll get into that. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers, or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. So let me first just start off with the voice acting. The voice acting is one of the reasons why I think this is going to be a much bigger and expansive game than originally, because on the N64, there was no voice acting. Nintendo did not do any voice acting on the N64 or the 3DS, unless you count Navi as, hey, listen, as some type of voice acting, and it's obviously not. But the first thing in the trailer, you hear the chime of the music, you hear the audio of probably like the king or somebody speaking. I don't know who it is. You guys let me know in the chat. So somebody's speaking with the narration. So that tells you right there, that is a grand scope and scale. The music being retuned and adjusted, the voice acting introducing the story or the beginning pieces of what The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is. This game is being handled with the utmost time, attention, and care, or otherwise you wouldn't get that, because trust me, they did not do that when they did Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3DS. I mean, they put out some trailers and it was like, all right, here it is, play it. We need something on the Nintendo 3DS. Same thing goes for like Master Quest or some of the stuff that we saw like on the GameCube and all that, just like re-releasing the game. This is a full-on, we're taking this seriously as a brand new big Legend of Zelda game. Now, obviously, the big thing that everyone is talking about is the super high-quality graphics. Some people say that the proportions look weird, but I don't think the proportions or the lens or anything with Link looks weird. I just think that a lot of people, just like Star Fox, aren't used to seeing Link in that detailed and highly like intricate graphics. People are used to seeing Link look like Super Smash Brothers or Toon Link, or in some type of animation or cartoon looking thing, or in the older games where you could not push those type of visuals or anime style type of visuals. Ocarina of Time, when it first came out, I never thought of it as like an anime style visual type game or cell shading, which obviously it's not that. I didn't think of it as that. I thought of it as, once again, just like Star Fox, in my head, the graphics of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time back on the N64 were super highly detailed and realistic. They weren't cartoonish, they weren't something different, so I think that's the reason why it's kind of throwing people off, seeing little Link look that highly detailed with that type of lighting and everything, and the detail when it comes to the graphics is just unheard of. So it makes things look a little bit weird and unproportionate, because you're just not used to seeing Link like that in any type of way, shape, or form, especially when it comes to Ocarina of Time. You're just used to him seeing it in his blocky N64 version or his slightly less blocky Nintendo 3DS version with an updated model, but more still like anime-ish, or more still like pretty basic geometry when it comes to what the 3DS could do. Still impressive for the Nintendo 3DS, but obviously nowhere near what you can do with the Nintendo Switch 2. So they are maxing out the Switch 2. I think that this game Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time Switch 2 Remake. This, in addition to Star Fox, these are two of the best looking, or will be two of the best looking games on the platform, if not the two best looking games so far in the young life of the Nintendo Switch 2. So the super highly detailed graphics is another reason why I think that this is going to be different. And here's the thing, when I talk about not a one-to-one remake with better graphics, now that I can see the depth and the scope of what they're doing with the graphics, there's no way that you can have the same type of Chambanra, you know what I'm saying, like blocky type of Z targeting combat. Don't get me wrong, there's still going to be Z targeting, but they're obviously going to add in new skills, new animations for swinging, new types of gameplay, new strategies to make things fresh and keep up, because the game would look incredibly weird if the game has these super highly incredible looking graphics, but yet it's still animated and moved and looked just like the Nintendo 64 version. That doesn't make any sense. Now, it makes sense for a game like Star Fox because you're in an airplane, it's an arcade shooter. There's not much more you can do with that, and that type of gameplay is still fresh. When it comes to a rail shooter, it still makes sense, it's still smooth, it's fine. You can keep the bones of what you're doing with Star Fox, but in a in-depth, detailed action type of game, you cannot have that same combat that you have from the N64, especially after Breath of the Wild and after Tears of the Kingdom, and just say, oh yeah, we're gonna do that same combat. Even after what they did in Wind Waker or Twilight Princess and some of the master skills and different things you got there, there's definitely going to be a lot more added in. And I'd say the biggest thing with this when it comes to the visuals and why I know it's not just going to be a one-to-one thing, you've got to look at Hyrule Field. Look at the dungeons, just look at the original game. There's no way that you can have Link looking like that and not dramatically change how things look to the point to where it feels completely different. They've got to flesh this game out. It's going to be a big Legend of Zelda game. It is a follow-up. It is a remake of one of the greatest games of all time and the highest rated game of all time on Metacritic. That means something to Nintendo. We've heard about how they care about those Metacritic scores, and Legend of Zelda means a lot to them. They associate Legend of Zelda, especially big mainline Legend of Zelda, with high quality. So I fully expect them to change up things. I fully expect them to add in new elements, and I would say that they would keep the bones and kind of keep some of the structure and some of the things that made Ocarina of Time great. Obviously the Great Deku Tree, you have the different weapons, Big Goron Sword, like there's going to be all this stuff that you know from there, but there's going to be a lot of variation in different ways that you get things done, in my opinion. I'm going to equate it somewhere between like a Resident Evil 4, Resident Evil 2 remake, something like that, and Final Fantasy 7 remake or Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be that drastic where they're putting it on like 3 different games or anything like that, or they're completely changing the combat system from a turn-based RPG, ATB, to a complete action RPG. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the level of detail and intricacy in terms of how they changed up how it looks to the point to where it feels like it's a completely different game, despite it being Final Fantasy 7 or despite it being Resident Evil 2. That felt very different when you played Resident Evil 2 on the Xbox One or on the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, wherever you played it on PC. That felt very different than playing Resident Evil 2 on the PlayStation 1. So that's how I feel this is going to be. Sure, it's going to be the game. You're going to see the characters and all that. There's going to be the same things, but there's going to be such a huge upheaval of graphics and new gameplay mechanics. It's going to feel different to the point to where maybe some of you guys, you know, don't like Ocarina of Time if you played it back then, but might love this game. Maybe it's the vice versa, but I doubt it based on the level of care that they're going to do for this game. So I think that there's a lot of things that's pointing to this not being a one-to-one remake of the game and being more of a reimagining make type of thing. Nintendo also said that it's the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time retold, not remade. So when you retell something, you can tell it a little bit differently than you did the first time. You know, and I think that's maybe one of the mistakes that Final Fantasy VII Remake did. So that's not quite necessarily a complete remake. So some people kind of got mixed with that. So with this one though, I think it's going to be Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time retold in a different type of way to where there is a lot of new things. Now, when could we actually see gameplay? Well, that's the thing with this. That's one of the reasons why, like I said before, why they didn't show any gameplay is because there is a ton of changes or new things added into that Z targeting system, and they want to be able to blow that out, kind of tease you right now, and then blow that out closer to launch. I fully expect there to be a Legend of Zelda 40th anniversary Nintendo Direct that goes down, and in that Direct we could see Wind Waker, Twilight Princess HD, we could see something like that. We could see a special edition of the Nintendo Switch 2 system itself. We could see Joy-Cons, Pro Controller. These are different special edition things that we can see for The Legend of Zelda with Ocarina of Time. I fully expect them to do a special edition of the game itself and have different contents in there. Special edition Pro Controller, special edition Joy-Con, special edition Nintendo Switch 2. I expect there to be a combination of all of those or some of those. And once again, other Zelda announcements. Maybe even they talk about the Legend of Zelda movie as well. So I do think it's going to be like that. We saw something very similar when it comes to Mario with the Super Mario Galaxy movie, where Nintendo had a Nintendo Direct in September, and in that Direct they did a blowout of Mario stuff and they released Mario Galaxy 1 and 2. Those were both big games that they released in HD, so to lead in and kind of the hype for the next Mario movie. So for the hype for this one, they could have Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess HD, Wind Waker HD bundled together, kind of hype it up just like we saw with Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2, and then of course other Legend of Zelda 40th anniversary events that are happening, and then along with the big thing when it comes to the game in 2026, and then the big movie in 2027. So that's what got me really excited about what's going on here. I just want to see what's happening with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And once again, we don't have that many months left in the year. We're pretty much already halfway through the year, so they're going to have to show us this game within the next month or two. I think they're going to focus on the big games that are coming out. We've got Star Fox, that there's a demo there. It's actually really fun, so check out Star Fox. We've got Splatoon Raiders. We've got Rhythm Heaven that actually looks a lot better than I thought it was going to look when it comes to like that RPG mini game that you got in there as well. And then on top of that, we still have to see what's happening with Dust Bloods and what's going on there when it comes to the network testing, all of that, because that's all going to launch before Ocarina of Time. And another big one with Fire Emblem, which I'm going to do a whole separate video / rant on when it comes to Fire Emblem, because there's some awesome things and not so awesome things, but I'm going to talk about that. But when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, yeah, there's still a lot to be shown. We're going to have more events. I'm looking forward to it. I think we get a Legend of Zelda 40th anniversary blowout at some point. We get another Nintendo Direct, which goes over more information. And then we get stuff for next year. So I think that overall, when it comes to the Nintendo Direct itself, we can talk about that just a little bit here, which I'll probably kind of cap off with a lot of my videos with this. Like, I understand how it wasn't for everybody. Trust me, I get that. I actually, if you watch my Nintendo Direct live reaction, which I was streaming for nearly 7 hours, I go over that. I was objective and said, yeah, you know, I can understand this is like a C+, or maybe even a bad show for some people, or maybe even like a B or something like that. But man, if you're an RPG fan, and if you're like old school Nintendo fan when it comes to Legend of Zelda, oh my goodness, this was absolutely amazing, especially this Ocarina of Time drop. Yes, I know we got the information beforehand, but we didn't know the extent that they were going to go with this one. Like I said, I still had tons of people saying that this was going to be a 3DS port or something like that. So we have to just sit there and say, okay, a lot of people don't pay attention to the leaks. A lot of people don't know. It is still something that they're doing, and they're doing in 2026. So this should be a crazy ride. So hopefully more gameplay, more. I can understand why people were upset maybe not having some gameplay, but I think that we're going to get a blowout, and it's going to be a very different style of game than maybe what you expected when it comes to The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time on the N64, and of course the 3DS version. I think they're going to enhance things in a good way when it comes to the combat and the levels and the design and everything. Man, I cannot wait to see Hyrule, because this just showed us that it's going to be a big one, way better than that Twilight Princess tech demo from the Wii U. I said, oh, if it has graphics like that, you know, that would be pretty cool. Dude, it blows those out of the water, not even close when it comes to the detail and all that. So this is going to be super impressive. I cannot wait to see more of the game. But what do you guys think when it comes to Ocarina of Time and them remaking it? Are you excited? Are you not? Let me know your concerns, limb proportion, all of that. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG content and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.